Welcome to the very first episode of Segments of Thought. And since this is our very first episode, Malesela, why don't you tell our listeners what exactly is Segments of Thought?
So, Segments of Thought is actually been coming for quite a while. You and I have been friends for quite a long time now. And in us being friends, the conversation never stops. So we actually thought to ourselves, well, because there's so much to conversate about and there's so many links to what we talk about, why not make it into a podcast? I think, at least I think it will be interesting enough to talk about the conversations and the topics that we actually talk about. And like the name says, it's a segment of certain thoughts that we might have had. So yeah, on your side, what do you think this will represent? What this represents to you, especially Mare?
So definitely, like what you're saying, it's those segments of thoughts, like those day-to-day things that we think about, that when someone really puts words to those thoughts, you're like, but I've been thinking about that the whole day, or I've been wondering about that the whole day. So we're just compiling that, into an accessible podcast that people can tap into, and you can also relate to everything we're thinking about, because it's one of those things that on a day-to-day basis, you've got a million thoughts running through your mind of what about this, or what if, and why that, and Segments of Thoughts is really those phone calls between me and you, Stella, that we've had, and we're just really compiling it and giving it to you, the listeners, to be able to tap into a little bit about what we're thinking about on a daily basis. Some of it's going to be a bit out there, some of it more relaxed. Depending on what your flavor is, you'll be able to tap into that specific thought for that specific episode.
Yeah.
So
I think while we're at it, what are some of the interests that both of us have? Because I think many people might think maybe we come from the same industry, but I think it's not the case, in fact. And that's what makes it so amazing to have such a podcast like this, because the perspectives that we'll be trying to reach in this podcast are more from different perspectives. Whilst you're a creative, you explain exactly what you do and who you are. And from my side, I'm in the tech industry, and how certain segments of certain thoughts will give perspective on how there will always be links between either your industry or your side of the world and maybe the technical side of the world as well.
Yeah, so definitely, I think it's always what's interesting about this podcast and the type of conversations we've always had is that we don't particularly agree on everything, and that's the beauty of these conversations, because some of these topics are going to be ones that leave us divided. Some of them are going to be ones where we agree on most things, but because of those differences, it's why I think we're able to actually have such valuable conversations, or such interesting conversations around so many different topics. It's because of those differences. And like you're saying, I've been in the creative industry now. I've been in architecture and had my stint in psychology and sociology. So I've always had this little burning sort of interest and curiosity about everything, and it's really coming together in what we're doing here. I think, it's just always asking those questions, and asking those questions everybody really is usually thinking about on a day-to-day basis. And this is just a platform to do that, So,
I think a cool thing what you just said now, just to tap into that especially, is how you had a stint in sociology and psychology, and one of the biggest things, I think that's maybe where me and you kind of like connect a lot. But I didn't do that for myself, but I've always thought that the psyche of a person and just human behavior in itself is quite interesting, especially we see in these day and ages where, for instance, from a technology point of view, how a lot of technology is taking over certain aspects of how people even think. And why would a person think the way they think? You know what I mean? So that's something I've always been curious about. And I think maybe that's where me and you kind of like link your side, obviously from a educational point of view, and obviously from the architecture point of view. And from my side, more of the why does a person do what they do? Why do they actually choose to go onto Facebook every single day or every single moment or anything in that sense? Because then we kind of like pricking certain conversations out of that. And I think it will be quite interesting to find out how the perspective of certain industries or certain conversations come about between me and you.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying like that, what you're saying is really the essence of what we're doing. It's questioning what we do every single day. You know, like it's those moments when you stop and actually think out loud, what is it that I'm actually doing, and why do we do the things that we do without really thinking about that actual burning question of why are certain things like that? And that's why I'm saying these conversations are going to get quite crazy and quite conservative, because it is going to be questioning some really big things about life and also some really small petty things. You know, like one of the conversations we've had was, you know, talking about Netflix and talking about specifically how it gets you hooked. You know, those are one of the small things that we speak about, but they can also become such big conversations. So really, it's all about questioning those things, and I really think it makes for awesome conversation. I think we've both got the personalities, you know, to really make this something interesting and really fun for both of us more than anything.
Yeah, I think what I'm most excited about though is actually going into researching some of the some conversations that I would never have thought, like meaning some thoughts that I've never had actually thought, okay, but that's actually interesting. Why would someone actually do that? Or why does a certain company or certain aspect of life, why is it like that? So I think that's one of the amazing parts about what we're going to do here is that going into things that are uncharted territories, meaning, imagine me talking about architecture, not to say that I don't know architecture, but I mean, it'll be interesting to kind of hear out why architecture. Like, you know, it's funny, my flatmates and I, we talk a lot about architecture, but I'm always questioning some of the things that the architecture industry actually does, like how they do it. In fact, one of the things that we're actually chatting about a week ago or 2 weeks back was how they charge. You know, why does there have to be a certain way to charge for people to get their houses built from them? You know what I mean? I understand there is a certain amount that you have to charge, but I mean, why? So those are the kind of conversations I'm really looking forward to, not only architecture, but in certain industries that I might not be exposed to in a direct way. But I mean, from my point of view, everything is linked some other way. Somewhere there will be a paper trail leading to the conversation that we had the week before, you know, and that's the amazing part about segments of thoughts. And I really can't wait for that, because you know, I mean, there's this thing that says that a conversation a certain topic in a conversation can't last for more than 7 minutes or something like that. And it will really be interesting to see how deep down we start, what rabbit holes we get into, you know? So yeah, man, it's going to be fun. It's really going to be fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think looking forward to it again. It really is looking where it's going to take us, and really going down those rabbit holes, you know, but then trying to condense it into an episode is going to be the difficult part. But I'm pretty sure after a few rounds, we'll get down to it. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. And thanks for getting it started with me.
Sure. I think it's been coming. It's been coming. I remember just for the guys that don't know, Ayanda and I had started a company before. It was 3 of us. And funny thing is, we had these recordings that we had taken for our meetings, and the nostalgia that we've had just listening to those recordings was like so amazing, because we're just like, what the, like, was that us? You know? And I mean, just that it's it's breaking down certain things like that is interesting. It was really interesting to see how far we have gone, where we are in our lives, and how far we still have to go to, you know, and just in general, people itself, just how people navigate the way around segments of thought. And cut.